guys. Let's see. Let's get this. See if we don't want that. So fat. All right, cool. So I'm gonna show you guys today how to annoy the piss out of your tattoo artist. So I'm getting ready to get a tattoo, and he seems pretty enthusiastic about it. He keeps asking me for reference, and I keep slow playing him, and so I'm just gonna kind of record and play with it a little bit. If you guys haven't heard of this dude, I will turn you on to him. His name is, actually, let's do this. Let's go to the website. But this is how his consultations are handled. So his website is tattoojamesstrickland.com. He does some pretty awesome stuff. Should really actually think about going something more in this direction than the way that I am going, but we'll deal with that later. I like this kind of stuff, and there's all kinds of stuff that's great. So this probably is pretty close to the stuff that I like, and I've been thinking for a long time this is going to be my fourth sleeve. So whoever's in the fourth sleeve club, here we go. And this arm's just been sitting. It was actually the first arm that I had lasered off, and it's just been sitting forever. And I'm anxious to go down onto my hands and maybe even creep up onto my neck. So my idea is I kind of want to do a battle royale because it's a classic tattoo, format or classic tattoo motif. When back in the day when I was doing a lot of reading on conspiracy theories and stuff, I learned a lot about the meaning of the double-headed eagle and how it represents duality and looking at the past and the future and all of that stuff. And I don't really think I want to do an eagle, but maybe a different bird, which we'll get into today. And then I also was thinking about, this is actually pretty sick, we might talk about something like this. So I'm not tied to my idea, James, if you see this. We can go into all kinds of shit, and I'm happy to play with it. But for today, we're going to be talking about this one, and it's going to be, let's actually look up Montana Tattoo Company. And, oh my God, we were both babies, buddy. Where are you at? He's not in here. He sits here and stares at me and breathes heavy until I do what he wants. So I think that I like a snake kind of like this, but obviously, this is far, far away from his style, and it's actually an amalgam of a couple people's styles that, I was into at the time, and I would actually like to fix this again. However, this has been torn down, and so it's no longer a thing. But I think I can actually, let's save this image and see what we can get done here. So this is a graffiti image of a stylized snake on a gray wall, outlined with gold. I want to see the same snake in black lines on white paper, but exactly the same structure. Now, that can go right in a lot of ways, right? We want to see, well, let's see how it goes. Because it can get the anatomy wrong, it can straighten the anatomy out. I really don't like the bottom jaw. So we're going to see. And this is just kind of like a tester. This isn't even really what I want to get into today. So actually we can get into today. So what I've been thinking about doing is I wanted to do a double-headed, and I wanted to figure out a different kind of bird, but I didn't know if I wanted to do a condor or a vulture or a buzzard, or I didn't even really know what the difference was. I know that when I grew up, my aunt and uncle had a picture of these two vultures in their house, or buzzards maybe, and so that's always kind of meant something to me. I know that, I had read a book one time about Johnny Cash starting a forest fire that killed all the California condors, and he didn't even really care about it at the time, but that kind of meant a lot to me. And growing up, I heard a lot about the California condors, and that type of bird has always just been very large and powerful, and a watcher, right? It doesn't necessarily kill things, but definitely kind of lets nature take its course, and it's just a watcher with, great capabilities for flight and traveling great distances and all kinds of things. Very hardy animal if it's not the best to look at. So I'm going to start at Perplexity, which is an AI engine that will write articles for you. And let's see, I have a pro account, but let's see if I can find, well, let's just skip it. Let's go, what's the difference between a buzzard and a condor and a vulture? So I think this kind of vulture is what I was thinking about, but less nutsack looking. This is kind of more of a condor, which has also got the ball sack thing going, maybe a double ball sack. So we're going to try to stick away from the double ball sack on my new tattoo. But let's see what these things say. I like the red ones, right? Because it looks like their skin got peeled away, and it's some kind of horror scene. You can see all the way through its nose, everything. And so I would assume that that's a vulture. That one's not listed. Let's get out of the photos here. A nuisance species is the black vulture. Turkey vultures are pretty cool, which I guess just means like big ass vulture, right? This is a cool shot. This is a really cool shot. I don't know if I would have them looking at each other that way, but it's possible. That's actually a really cool shot. I'm going to think about that. So the taxonomy. Now we're going to talk about the taxonomy. Now I've done this, so I'm not going to make you guys go through all of it. But then I figure out what all these mean, and then I say, how about culturally? And so really what I'm worried about is the symbolism. Vultures are strongly associated with death and transformation, cycle of life. Ancient cultures, vultures were symbolized protection, motherhood, and the divine feminine. Patience, resourcefulness, and renewal. Those are all pretty cool. Condors are supreme power, freedom, higher vision, spiritual guidance. In the Andes, the condor is seen as the ruler of the sky and messenger between worlds. In California, they see this condor as the celestial being, a transformer, and a protector. Condor often represents the heart. Same, divine feminine, spiritual insight. Buzzard refers to hawks. In North America, buzzard is slang for vulture. As slang for vulture shares the symbolic themes of transformation, death. Okay, I could go with a vulture or a condor, really, and probably buzzard is the wrong word. So let's go ahead now and go to Pinterest, and we're gonna look up vulture versus condor, right? These are all things I'm looking at when I do other people's tattoos. So let alone, wrong window to close. This is probably what was hanging up at my relative's house when I was a kid. Something like this. This is really, really cool, right? You know, anytime you can do a bird like this with the crane where the feathers are kind of like wet and have a lot of direction to them. It's a really cool shot. I'm pretty sure this is a vulture. So I kind of like the head shape of the vultures more. So let's go ahead and look for something more on point. So we're going to look for, so I'm going to just get a couple of these pictures because I'm not worried about the picture yet. This is great. What is this? Or this is a vulture. This is also cool. I really like this, right? Where it's this all flows and you can see through the nose and everything. My concern is I really like doing light things on a dark background more than I like doing dark things on a light background. So I would think of my arm as being, you know, black and whatever's on there being lighter, but maybe there's room for that. Maybe we just put the other thing inside it. I'm sure he's going to decide all those things for me. This is super cool and scary looking. Here we go. I should just share this whole board with him. Okay, now we're gonna get into, oh, this is way cool. I like the square head in the back. I think it's very contrasty to how most birds are and how like aerodynamics you would think of. It's just like flows the wrong way. So let's get into these condors. You can see I have all this saved as, damn it, this one gets me every time. Look at this. What is this? There's no way. This has to be an AI. Crap. What? I want to tattoo this on somebody so fucking bad right now. I'm gonna have to post this. So these are all very cool, but let's get on with our day. And we're gonna go ahead and we don't want this. Great. And we're gonna go over here to meshy.ai. Log in. I got no clue what I would have logged in before, so that's cool. Bam, look at that. It did an awesome job. That is very, very, very impressive. Cool, great. Now let's see how it renders it. Okay, so we're gonna go from there to here and just go to, still try to get this meshy AI to load, although there's a couple places we can try to do this. Damn, I needed that information right exactly right when I left it. Hi buddy, are you here to make me do something I don't want to do? Look at your chin. Is it itchy? You want me to itch it? Got it in the water. This dog is allergic to water. Hi buddy. Let's hope that this is the one that does it. Whoa, this is pretty cool. So Meshy can create a 3D model for you, and I want to do a ZBrush class, sculpting level, AI 3D modeling. Get your hands on the next level. What is that? Damn, I definitely want to do that. So I've got a few credits and we are going to create. So let's go to workspace, image to 3D, and however you feel about whatever the fuck you feel. This is a tattoo that's going on me and I'm not even going to do the artwork on it. I'm just kind of like setting up new cool references, and I want to do a ZBrush course. James is interested in learning ZBrush. I think ZBrush is a really fast way to create. It'll be slow because it'll be like first time out or whatever. But I think if I set it up as a project and I'm like, look, just get crazy into this, then not only will you have a good time doing it, but then when he gets to drawing and doing his normal style of creating that's going to feed into, you know, the process. So this thing should be loading soon, but you can have these things made and you can upscale them and you can correct them. Man, some of these are really awesome. And some of them come from artwork, but the idea here for me, where's the... I want to do the image of 3D, do the thing. The idea here is that if there's only so many vultures on Instagram or Pinterest and none of them are made doing a tattoo, I also don't have a problem with it making a model that I could then later come in, let's see, download to my own computer and sculpt on top of. So this right here, this is a mess. This is an unusable mess, right? Maybe this top right one would be a good starting point. You can see a lot of the bone structure in there and all of that. And so what you would want to do is bring this into ZBrush it. You're going to want, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to want to do. And then we also have over here this one, which will take just a second to load and is like going a little bit further. Oh, to continue on. So while that loads, let's go ahead and put in this guy, because why not? This is the coolest looking one. We'll go ahead and try this Meshy 6 preview. Name, Regal Vulture. It can read the photo and everything. So this is another one that I had made where I had made this image in OpenArt, or OpenArt made this image for me. And so now I have this, you know, alien bug that has some sculptures on it, and I can go recreate this in ZBrush as my own thing and make it, you know, I will make a thing at the end of the day that I completely made and nobody's ever seen, right? However, I probably could have gotten to this starting point, you know, depending on how much time and energy I put into it and how much I liked it. But I can also do 50 thumbnails of similar stuff, figure out the coolest one, and then really put my time and energy into that one. What do you want, buddy? What are you trying to do? He says, no, there's no room for you. You have to go. He's just going to stare at me until I give him whatever he wants. Let's go. You're so bad. He wants to sunbathe, and it's going to get cold soon. So it is what it is. So we're going to do... So here we are, this really nice and clean vulture, right? And now I probably wouldn't do the nose the same. I probably would focus on this hair in the back a bit, but that is like, that's pretty great. Let's go ahead and see about texturing this guy. I mean, that's amazing. So now we can take this and sculpt it, put more skull texture in here, put more, well, whatever we want in here. Make the beak wider and beefier, but it looks pretty good from this side. And now if you want two of them in a scene together, you just make it, copy it over. You know, I would probably make it 2/3 of the way, maybe 80% of the way done, and then copy it into two of them, and then do the final 20% of details like unique to each one, right? So they won't have all the same details. And then you have one that's kind of like pecking at the other one, and the other one that's just like staring at you. See, yeah, for people we look at this as staring at you, but for birds I think this is staring at you. So that's pretty cool. So what can we do with this? How do we download it? So now we're going to take this and we are going to, OBJ is usually pretty reasonable. Resize the model to real world dimensions. I don't care about that. Download 10 downloads a month. Oh, Meshy 4 models, because this is a Meshy 6 model. Alright, they're going to get you. But that's okay. So $15 a month for a year. That's $182 today. And if you're a subscriber, you can get one of these. So I'm going to skip this, because I think I have another one. Let's see how it does. And let's see what OpenArt can do here. Shut the fuck up. More creations, models, AI tools, assets. They don't do 3D. Well, I mean, in a year, that will for sure save $182 of work. And here it is textured, which is not so bad, right? It's not perfect, but it's not so bad. I don't really need the maps because we're not going to do color anyway. So let's see what Meshy 4 does, because it said 10 Meshy 4 demos, downloads. So we'll see how far off the Meshy 4 gets it. But it's probably worth it, you know? I mean, look, if you can get this far off of a photo, the idea is you have, you know, you can play with your idea. You can draw and sketch whatever you want, and you can put that into one of these engines, and you can make 50 things that you can look at as ideas. And maybe you drew the one you wanted right off the bat. Maybe you didn't. Maybe that idea comes up later, and then you can take multiple pictures of that same thing from multiple angles. So, you know, you don't have to be the guy that draws buzzards and vultures. You can just make one and then use those shots for different tattoos as time goes on. This is going to be rad and totally worth it, but I wish there was like a one-time download fee. I don't want to pay with PayPal. I can subscribe monthly. It's $20 a month. I have that much in the thing. Wait. Meshi 5 and Meshi 6 preview models. Unlimited downloads of all models. 10 tasks in the queue. Yeah, that sounds cool. I am down. No, subscribe now. Shut up. So that's $10. And now what you'll see is as time goes on and I keep like doing this shit and downloading things and all of that, I bet I have an account somewhere. I hope to God I don't need to update my Zebra subscription because that's not nearly as nice. But actually Meshi said that you could, it will respond. So AI text, so home. Okay, so now I have fucked up my menus, and I'm looking for preferences, config, restore standard UI. I like the standard UI. We're gonna go to document, double. We're gonna close this. We are going to file, open a file. No saving changes. Downloads? Doesn't sound right. Where's the file on this? Oh, it's probably gotta be a zip file. I don't want, we already have the texture. These are those version 4 models. Garbage. This, sick. So, give me an FBX and what does it do? And maybe I'm just in the wrong input. Downloads. Boom, here we go. OBJ. Bam. Pull this out, and then I gotta hit W. Q. What's the button? So you can just keep pulling these guys out. Oh yeah, see now I can sculpt that one. So control Z. I don't want that. So we're going to try that over. Cool. And now I can use my space mouse to move this guy around. I can, and now if I find my pen, I can hit B, C for clay, and I want an edge. Creases would be nice. Clay tubes is always good. So now I can use my space bar to change my size and how soft my brush is, and I can start, I actually want symmetry on here. Yeah, but let's look at what the wireframe here is. Oh my lord. So what we're gonna want to do before anything else, turn that off, is we want to open the, I gotta turn this light off. That reflector ain't working. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is go to the subtool, duplicate this subtool, and we want to leave them in the exact same space for what we're going to do later, but we're going to get rid of this and hopefully make that nicer. So we turn this one off. On this one, we are going to come to geometry. This is already dynamite, and we're going to go to Z remesher, and we want half the polygons. There is 121,000. We can actually keep creases. We don't have groups. I want to have the same polygons because that's actually not really a bad number. Let's actually make it half. And what this is going to do is adjust where all of these little grids are to explain this shape to us. And you can see how this is very well structured now in how these things are looping around, and it's just all little squares. The reason you want little squares is because this is the second one, and we actually want to have this grid as simple as possible. So what we can do now is turn this one on and use project to project all, and that's going to project all of the details from the first one onto the second one. And so now it's just like a little bit more aligned. So now what you do is you say geometry again, Z remesher, half again, and we have 111,000 points in our current model. We're gonna hit the same thing again. We want to keep the creases. We don't really want adaptive size because we want all these squares to be the same size. And the reason you want the squares to be the same size is that a big flat, one of these single squares, that's the resolution, right? That's like a pixel for tattooing. So the more uniform those are, the better, because they can always, a quad can always be divided by 4 or multiplied by 4, right? So if you cut all of your quads in half, I have 44,000 points, and I go up in resolution, that's going to give me 200,000 points. So now we do the same thing. We're gonna go to the subtool. We are going to project all, and then it gets tighter. So now this thing that took us 120,000 polygons to describe, we now have with 40. We're going to do the same thing again. And so it gets simpler and simpler. Now we're down to 20,000 squares. And again, we can use the sub tool, project all. And that's probably cool. So now what we're going to do, I'm just looking at how these kind of like loop around the mouth and stuff. I want to break this into groups is because some of these creases we're going to want to like pull on and tug at later to give this thing more expression and things like that. So we want, and they'll have different textures. So the beak will be different than the eyes, will be different than the head, right? And the top beak and the bottom beak might as well be different at that rate. So let's go ahead and just take care of that, because this is really the easiest time to get all of that done. And we're gonna use control to paint that in and mask that off. And I should be doing, is it Z preferences? That's not the light box I want. Is it called Z something? Spotlight. Duh. How do you open Spotlight? Render. Fine, be that way, dude. I could fucking beat your fucking ass. Alright. So I need a reference, and I'm too dumb to figure out what it is real quick. So we're just going to use PureRef, and PureRef is going to let me use images in a reference file and stay on top, and keep those images on top. So we're going to take all of these and put them in here. Why can't I open? Zoom out a bit. So ZBrush has a really cool application for this, like internally, and I'm just really being lazy right here. So we're gonna look at all these. I like all these. We're gonna keep them handy. No, what are you doing? And control A, always on top. So you can enable always on top. That way I can go back to the program and it's there. So I'm already kind of like going a little crazy on this as far as the shape I'm going to give it, which I really like. So what we want to do is we want to mask. This is how we operate masks in here. Control. I probably didn't need to do that. This is actually probably pretty good where it was. And this can, I hear a youngin. I hear a baby. So control W. So this is a different one. Oh, so here we're going to say control W. And what we're trying to do is get this as straight as we can through here, because as we go up in resolution, these things are going to get way smaller, and we want this to end up being a straight line. So we're also going to come in here. The Z remesher did a really great job. When I was playing around in here last, it did not do that great of a job. So we're going to mask this eye out, try to get all this. Hey kiddo.
Morning.
How are you? Why are you up so early? Weird. And so we're going to start with those two, and we're going to get this smooth creases brush. So where is that? Smooth groups. So that would be BS. Maybe it is in deformation, polished by groups. Boom. So that's going to smooth it out quite a bit. We can do this too. We can say, that's by feature. There we go. Now we invert that, and now we can smooth this out. So now we do deformation smooth. There's one in here that'll let me come through and just paint in my groups. But this is going to start getting these, when we go up in resolution, this is going to help quite a bit. So now, because we've changed some of this, and we've changed where these loops are and how these things work, what we're going to do is by feature control over, nope, that's actually what we like. And we are going to project. Why does it not let me project all? Yeah, here we go. Project all. Turn this one off. And now we're going to go up in resolution, control D. And we went from 18,000 points to 75,000 points. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to project all. So now we have a mesh that has 300,000 points. We started with 120,000, and we thought that was wild, right? So this mesh is 124,000 points. Looks like horseshit, right? Looks like a scribble doodle, but is cool, you know. And now what we have made is, oh, where are we at? A nice, clean, pretty much the same thing, right? So, and now the beauty is we can get into this thing at a very high resolution. This clay color is going to kill me. So let's go ahead and do monster clay. I like that. And we're going to get rid of these. And we have symmetry turned on. So now we can get into this guy pretty crazy. So now we're going to want to look at some of these textures, and we can project these textures on also. I'm not going to do that because that's like not necessarily the most fun part of this. I think this is kind of like the more fun part. So look, we got the eyelids and everything in here. Really good. I've only been working on this a few minutes, and it's actually taken me longer because I haven't been in the program a lot lately, and it's so another thing that I like to turn on is, I think it's in here, draw, I think it's in brush actually. So I need a mouse pad so bad. Brush, auto masking, mask by poly groups. So you can see it doesn't even like go on to that other side. It'll just stop right wherever your line is there. And you'll also notice that we've gotten a bit jagged here. So let's go back and do this again, where we mask by feature. It's going to mask all those creases. We're going to hit control and click, and that will undo it. And then we have a deformation for polish by groups, and so we're just going to start trying to straighten that out again and again until it's pretty smooth. Especially in the eye, you want it very smooth. So in tattooing, we don't really have to do this, because if you're making a static image that doesn't have to warp or do anything, then you can just turn it in space, and you can actually start with a piece closer to that thing that we had in the beginning. We can get up to the point where this is a couple million polygons. I probably also want to separate out the bottom draw here, but I'm going to worry about that in a little bit. So using spacebar, like I said, this is going to change your life when you learn that the spacebar is a hotkey. Shift will help smooth things out. You know what I need to look up is a vulture skull. So I am not an expert at any of these tools, but I'm really great at how all of them go together. I can't even find it on here. Of course, that's where I want to save it, dude. But now let's look at this. Say we want this guy in here. We also want to see how this dude did with my fucking snake. That's pretty goddamn sick. Yeah, retry it, please. Because that's fucking so close that it's wild. Okay, back to ZBrush while that thing works. We want and push this out and really show how this is, right? Right click, canvas, images, arrange by optimal. As you zoom out, it will zoom in on, I think this is actually this part back here, and this part we can sculpt in. So it's really just making parts stick out and making parts go in, so that later when we start shining light on it, it casts a different shadow. And we want to really like exemplify the bone structure here. And later, once we get this done, we can get crazy with that last 20% of detail. We don't want these things evenly spaced, because they wouldn't happen that way on, you know, a head. Natural spacing with everything, no crisscross like that. But you can also focus here, be built up. Here's where it would be overlapping quite a bit, and we want the backs of them a little bit smoother than the fronts of them. So we just put in a little bit of attention that way, and there you go. So then we have secret brushes. Secret brushes that aren't anywhere else, right? And so let's go ahead and put down that clay. We'll actually get out of here so you guys can see it a bit easier. This is more fun to look at this way. So FYI, there's a soft spot right behind and below their eye if you ever need to thumb your way out of the grasp of a vulture. And then let's do, so all the brushes have a 3-letter short key, so it'll be B and then P and then scribe. I'm gonna do scribe, and that's gonna give me, no, I don't want that. BS standard. Nope, I've forgotten all my brushes. B. I could use pinch, but there's scribe, there's /3. Yeah, that's quite a slash. All right, so that's okay. I can actually go down, soften it up, get really nice creases under here. And then when you hold control, or like I've got my pin set up to be different buttons, I want to turn down my focal shift. You can carve out underneath and then put an edge on top. So this is way too much. I want to shrink this brush down, turn the focal shift up, there we go, and then really get in and just build out your edge. Then you can soften it. That was also pretty hard, so let's see. Intensity is going to control how much that brush is pushing or pulling, and that's not enough. That looks good. So let's bring this in and make sure that we have our brush at a size that's going to do what we want, and we get all these nice creases in here dug out, and some of these places are going to get kind of embellished, and we can use these details, right? We can get all flowy with these details. I'm going to have to turn on the map for that part. And so what we're doing here is we're kind of just putting in some bills. I don't need this anymore. I need this, right? So now what I want to do is take this whole section, maybe not even this as much, soften the brush, maybe not want the effect as much down here. And so now I can just pull these out and a little bit lower. And everything else will stay exactly where it's supposed to. So let's actually do this and make this tighter. And by bringing it down so much, we're really going to create this cavity in here. If we use the gizmo, we can make it wider, and I believe since symmetry is on, it'll just keep everything the same. But what we really want to do is stretch out the middle. So what I would do for that, we're gonna have to reshape the beak, is if you click control outside of the model, you're gonna pull up, in this case it's freehand, I want to get a rectangle, and just go right down. No, not like that. Right down the center. And then invert the mask. This is not doing what? Dynamic symmetry? We'll deal with this in a minute. This is going to annoy me. Cute. But I want the beak wider and meatier. So what happens if we just... And now we're going to move with a big brush this, so it's just a bit wider and meatier. So that's going to create a rift back here at the masking line, but that's okay because I'm not going to really I'm not that worried about it yet. We can move this eye out and it'll give, the eye will be deeper inside. Now we're going to probably change this later and this masking and stuff, but for now this is going to help us be where we want to be. Actually, let's do this. So if you mask a section and then hit Control W, it's going to give it its own color. So this is called poly grouping, and it's a great way to control your masking. And it's one of those things like everything else I talk about where it's really fucking boring. But if you do it early in the process, you don't have to do it later in the process, which is great. So let's actually just push this eye back a little bit in space. And then I can also do this because it really is kind of like different skin right here. And then same thing. Let's go ahead and mask by groups, deformation, polish by groups. And we didn't want that. Deformation, okay, masking, mask by feature, invert mask, which you can do by control click the layer, deformation, polish by groups, and we still have it. It's still very not what we want up here, but we can deal with that in a bit. We can edge loop the groups, not with the mesh and multiple subdivision levels. Let's deal with this first then. BCT is gonna always get you back to clay tubes, which is an easy thing to build with. There's a couple of different that are pretty easy to use in here. The reason I like this one is when it comes to like striations and like how muscles grow in your body and things like that, this like kind of chunkier clay tubes as opposed to like just the standard clay will give you those striations and those marks, and it will look much more naturally occurring than something that's like extra smooth, right? Yes. I just did there, but it was probably not what I want. And this brush is probably a little bit strong for me right now. But let's get into some of the crazier textures. And we don't want it to have such big cheeks. It's got fat fucking cheeks right now. BMV. And so now you can focus, right, on making, instead of just drawing it and making it cool, right? I could probably draw it like this if I want to go like this and this, which I'm sure would have some other implications about the neck. You can do that. and now you have a 3-headed bird. But you don't want to do this part yet, so don't let me get ahead of myself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into some crazier brushes that I don't got and you won't got. Cute. And so your subdivision levels, what that means is this is the higher resolution model that we made. I still didn't get these corners out properly, but we're not going to worry about that for a second. If we turn the resolution down, we can get back to the point where we only had 18,000 polygons. But it's very choppy. Tighten it up a little bit, cut all of those polygons into 4, gets a little bit smoother. And as a matter of fact, right now I'm going to make it so it gets even smoother by hitting Control D again. So now we have over 1 million points in this thing. And what we're gonna do is turn on Lightbox, go to our brushes, get this guy a little bit out of the way, and see what we got going. So I like this Geiger stuff. Where's my Geiger stuff? What's in creature skin? Oh, these are pretty cool. These are really close to the Geiger ones. So if I want to click this, I can have that eaten up in a pretty cool way, and you can control this the same way. You can turn the intensity way down, so you're just kind of like laying in a more natural skin pattern. I would say this is probably better for the beak, and you can, you know, make all the textures go the same way because you can just do it in one stroke. So right, and so what we want to do is more texture on the one after that. So these guys definitely have a lot more texture going on here in this section that is between the formal beak itself, or the end of the beak, I guess I should say, is a lot smoother. But as I get into this, I always go back to my old the tattoo rules that matter, which is less is more. And as I think about putting all this stuff on my arm, I also think that doing one design much larger would probably be just as good or better. And so, you know, so the story goes. So I'm not sold or stuck on anything. I don't want to pass off this video as like me trying to design this whole thing. I just want to share some really cool tools, and some of it we want to smooth out because that we want the north-south texture but not the east-west texture, if that makes sense. And I think that his head is too round, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to flatten that out just a little bit. But I still like this squared off look that we saw here. Maybe not so far out in the back. You don't want all this stuff kind of in and the eyebrows pronounced. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to get around this guy and smooth all this stuff out. We'll get in there and deal with the eye here in a minute. But the trick is bouncing around, looking at it close, looking at it far, spinning at, looking at it at the other side, seeing what you can do. Maybe we want to actually, don't switch shit, move this brush, turn off this masking by polygroups, and now you can get these things to move together, right? So I kind of want this out a bit. We can smooth that out, and now we can get back in here. I think the forehead's probably a little bit smoother, so let's just get in here and kind of like really look at these poly groups. Yeah, so let's do this. So let's go Control Shift Click will hide, and you can hide things by the poly group. And so now we've just made this one big group again, and I've done that just so I can like kind of just clean up where everything is at, and I want to stick to these lines whenever possible. So we're gonna, when you use those selectors as opposed to just like freehand brushing something in, we want this to be very strong. So I guess what we should do is get this whole area first, and then we'll get inside that area. And I like doing that because you just worry less about getting outside the lines. Well, cool, that's better. And so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna just make it so that only, I want this one here too, make it so that the eyes are hidden. I can't possibly mess them up. And then go to comma, we'll bring up your light box, and we want, what alarm is going off here? Oh, I know what's happening. Okay, so let's try this. Actually, it goes this way a bit as far as texture, and a couple areas where it's less pronounced, have it crawling over some of these other spots. And in very short time, we have made this guy. Put his eyes back in, and then what I would do actually is duplicate this guy just to save it. So, or we can actually just Control click our history up here at the top, and that's gonna save that history point for us. And we can do things like this. So what snake hook will do, and the reason that it is different in how it operates, is you'll notice if we turn this mesh on, what's going to happen is snake hook can move things in sculptress mode, but it's going to change that mesh you got. And sculptress mode apparently can't work with subdivision levels. So let's go ahead and go to geometry, freeze our subdivision levels, turn on sculptress mode, and now we can just pull things out at will. But it's going to make our geometry really ugly again, right? So we put in all that work on the geometry, and now it's ugly again. So the trick is kind of like going back and forth with geometry. And I'm going to use this here and try to leave it so that I don't have to turn on sculptress mode. It's already up here a bit. You can tell where it started deleting things, or oh, there we go. So unfreeze the subdivision levels, go back to our nice, beautiful, too many polys to even see guy here. Make sure the masking is turned off, and then just kind of play with the shapes to make it all a little bit more aggressive. If you want to get crazy with it and have stuff coming off of them, you can definitely do that. Let's do subtool. Let's duplicate this guy and play around, because we know we can get back to this point. And so we're going to delete the lower. So there's no more lower subdivision here. We can't fuck around with it, but we can play with snake hook. And so you can already see how that's kind of like getting our, hey look, it's a griffin. In 2 minutes it's a griffin. I'm going to use this as a griffin on somebody. So if you see this and you want a tattoo of a griffin that came from a vulture head, fucking got it. Cool. Boom. Now we got a griffin. So let's not do that, because that's not what this is. Let's actually turn off symmetry, and let's look at what our actual tools are here. So BS, snake curve, snake cactus. I don't think I need any of these. Snake hook 2. What's snake hook 2? Yeah, shut up. Sculptress Pro. So this one pulls out, and snake hook 1 pulls the way you kind of want it to go. Yeah, I get it. And so, I don't know, I think we're kind of cool. Maybe make him smiling or smirking back here a bit. We haven't gotten too crazy with this, so let's go ahead and skip that. I just kind of wanted to show it. It might come in handy later, maybe not. I like these little baby furs, but we're not really that worried about them yet. So light box, let's see what other brushes I have that would be valid here. I don't want any of these. These are all Sculptress Pro brushes. Okay, and so what this will do is just add an extra layer of texture on top, and then everything just starts looking more textured kind of all together. And these textures are not duplicated, right? Or they're not mirrored, although they probably should be. There should be places where the bone is protruding through the skin a little bit heavier. Let's turn on this masking. No, that line's gonna bother me, but we'll get to it in a minute. So the earlier on in the process you can straighten that stuff out, the better. We want to see these guys again. Geiger tribute, here we go. That's huge. Let's do, so the big ones first and then the small ones, because it's just gonna go way better, or be more believable, I should say, as you smooth things out. Because if things are too smooth, that's when it looks, you know, airbrushy. Let's turn the intensity down, and then some of these patterns are made to go with the texture that you have going, and some of them go against it. So now hit W, control Z, delete lower. Now we're not going to do any rendering programs right now because I'm just not that worried about it yet. But that's a pretty cool shot. That could be like most of an arm with a bunch of like other feathery stuff going this way, right? And then let's get in here and mess with the light. So if we open up this menu for light and we click this little thing, it's going to pop it over into the side menu here. And let's say that we want this light actually to be very intense. And then we want a light on the other side to be, we're just going to work with white lights right now. And then when we hit PBR, that's going to give us a rendering of what it looks like with the lights and everything. So let's take this one and move it up a little bit and turn the intensity of it way, way down. We don't want that. It's way too much. Now we're getting somewhere. We do want there to be some ambient light. That's pretty cool. I think we can get a little better. Ambient light way down on this side. Now let's look at, let's get over here, the material. And we're going to actually make this bump viewer. It's a little bit better. And let's go document background. So what happens is anything that you drag it over back for background, it will turn into that color. So you hit document back. I like it darker gray. There we go. Or a lighter gray. That's what I meant. So now we can look at this from any side. It's probably a little bit straight on for me. What happens if we make this one more intense? And this is probably way too intense for this one. That's weird. And then what's some ambient? And then this guy. What if I control click this guy to the outside and then turn the intensity up? Set the intensity to 1. So I'll probably get into this in a rendering program where I can get deeper into it, but I will send him this to see what he thinks. Cool. So that is all I'm going to show today, because I just send him the image. We'll see what he thinks. And then we're still waiting for this one to go. So let's stop, reload, see what it's going to give us. No, that's good. It even got the tiny eye. So I like the tiny eye thing, and it even did that. I would probably do, I don't know, man. We might have it here. I sent him the idea. He likes the vultures as they are, so we can come back. And now the cool thing here is, you know, you can look at them from any angle. You can make it the other way. You can make a third head. You can make them imposing, like they're looking down on you, right? And then in the next step, we can look at, do we want these with you know, their head coming back? Do we want it with their neck looking over? You know, you're going to always want to sculpt the head on its own so that you can move it, right? There's certain parts of the body that don't move and bend. The head is one of them. The rib cage is one of them. It bends and moves a little bit. The rib cage kind of flexes with your spine, but your joints move and your bones do not. So in some instances, it's better to have those things separated out. I mean, that could take up pretty much my whole fucking arm if it was done properly, right? And then hard to not like that for under 2 hours of work. This guy's getting stuck. So let's actually download this image. We're gonna copy this, new chat. Oh, I want create an image, add my image of this line drawing, render the snake with soft, flat, top-down lighting. That still sounds good. I should have said diffuse lighting, but that's okay. Same. So this morning, I got quite a bit done. James's workflow should be working right. I think that the phone will be able to process walk-ins via voice, and we've made 2 vultures and a snake. That is my snake. I drew it. It looks like this. I even don't like this part right here. I don't like it. So now we're just gonna wait. I'll be right back. Oh man, and this thing is fucking sick. This is a great job. I wouldn't have done it like this at all. And I'll probably bring some little flowy shit off of here, but I can definitely take this over to Meshy and see what it does. I would do this one differently because it's got more moving parts, and they've definitely like kind of messed some things up here. So it might be better if I actually just paint in Photoshop with it first. What kind of brush are we using? Hard elliptical paintbrush. That's okay. I love the Z command for the brush controls being the spacebar. It is just like the way to go. So in a new layer. And so what I'm going to do here is very roughly just kind of like make some corrections. This should be a tooth. And there should be maybe another tooth on the other side. I keep trying to hit the space bar. Now, I'm not getting too crazy with this because the Meshy can only do so much, right? It's just going to make a thing. So we want a clear model of what this thing is. We're going to go ahead and turn the opacity of this down. Filter, blur, some blur. Make it so it's real soft in there and just kind of like shows a bit about where the edges are. Now we're going to save a copy as a JPEG because we just want a soft, flat, low impact image. And we can see the difference here because it definitely looks like a 2-headed snake. I could probably try it again and get better results, and I might, but we can save that for a different lesson. And here we can get into Meshy. Maybe I'll make a thing called it using all the tools, which I think would be the real educational. I guess I should say that would be what I would really teach everybody to do, right? I'm going to make these Procreate class and a ZBrush class and all that stuff. But I really think the trick is in using it all together. So why is Meshy just not wanting to load anywhere? So that's just going to take a Meshy AI bag gateway. That doesn't seem normal or like what I want. So while this isn't quite exactly what I wanted originally, this is pretty fucking good. Let's tell it to try again. And we can just open this over here. Man, this Meshy isn't wanting to load. So I'm going to stop this video and I will bring it up again later maybe.